Holbinger, ABC News.
News Talk KVNU.
The information from the Pretty Balanced Perspective.
Online at kvnutalk.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Cache Valley native and former education advisor to former Governor Herbert, Tammy Pfeiffer, returned to KVNU's For the People program last week. She is a member of the team behind the Dignity Index, which is an 8-week pilot program with a ranking system on a dignity scale. The goal being to raise awareness on how people talk to each other, specifically in the political realm. Piper said one of the things they wanted to do with this is to start a conversation.
And I think we've done that. I think we've started a conversation. And when you see, people that really latch onto it, that are really motivated and touched by it, and when you see people that are defensive about it and skeptical, it's all good. We've started a conversation.
Pfeiffer said their goal is to take that conversation to the next level where they get people thinking.
The incidents that are in the news right now with Nancy Pelosi's husband really highlights the need for us to watch our language.
Sure.
Because it's that language of violence and demeaning and belittling, and we're better than those people. One of the points on the dignity scale, it's like when you get down into the contempt side 3 and 2, at 2, it's those people are evil and a danger to everything we value. They're going to ruin us if we let them. It's us or them.
She said she thinks people simply do not realize the extent to which language can lead to these violent acts. You can find out more about it at dignityindex.us. KVNU weather for tonight, rain and snow in the forecast for tonight, depending on the temperature. Overnight low in the low 30s. And then on Wednesday, rain and snow in the morning, snow likely in the afternoon, little or no accumulation, upper 30s for the high early on. Snow likely Wednesday evening and a chance of snow after midnight, accumulation around 1 inch. And then by Thursday, a slight chance of snow in the morning, partly sunny in the afternoon, but cold, lower 30s. 36 has been our high. It's 33 with some light snow and rain in some parts of the valley. Here at KVNU, it appears to be snow at this point. KVNU weather brought to you by the Duct Hunter. Clothes dryer vents can get clogged with lint. Birds can even build nests in them. Let the Duct Hunter clean them out for you. Call 770-4813.
We might all agree that a vacation to Vegas is good, but Hawaii is better. Same thing when you're building. Wood is good, but metal is better. If you're considering a new building for your farm or business, let Northern Steel Building show you the benefits of metal. Metal is stronger with little or no maintenance, and it doesn't burn. Find out how affordable a metal building really is by visiting northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com or call 435-677-7300.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson warned that long lines at in-person voting locations today could delay the results of many closely watched races. The lieutenant governor said she wants every voter to know, everyone in the state needs to know, that they are not going to release results until everyone in line has finished voting. So if they have locations that have really long lines and the polls close at 8 o'clock, but everybody who's in line at 8 o'clock gets to have a chance to vote. She said they're going to make sure they all vote before they start releasing results. In the area of instant communication, voters could potentially start receiving text messages and news alerts on their phones of initial voting results while still waiting to cast their own ballot. The lieutenant governor said there is a simple solution for many who would like to see results sooner. Get your mail-in ballot turned in now. As of Monday morning, voter turnout is about 31% throughout the state. Windy weather on Monday morning knocked out power for thousands of Utahns in Salt Lake and Tooele counties. At one point, more than 22,000 customers were without power Monday morning. Customers in Tooele also dealt with outages. Rocky Mountain Power said one of the outages was caused by some Mylar balloons that blew into power lines. Another outage was caused by a breaker that tripped. The National Weather Service reported gusts of 65 miles per hour were recorded near the Great Salt Lake. Winds of 37 miles per hour were recorded in Salt Lake City. Due to the outages, some stoplights in Salt Lake City were not functioning. Salt Lake City police reminded residents in that area, if you ever come across an intersection without power, treat it as a four-way stop. Same goes up here in the Cache Valley. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Know about it. Talk about it. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. We've teamed up with Ridgeline High School Booster Club to bring you the mattress warehouse sale of the year. November 11th and 12th at Ridgeline High School. My Mattress, Maloof, and Serenoni will have truckloads of mattresses, mattress protectors, sheets, pillows, accessories, Serenoni blankets, and more at blowout, rock-bottom prices. Don't miss this chance for blowout pricing from My Mattress, Maloof, and Serenoni. November 11th and 12th at the Ridgeline High School Mattress Warehouse sale.
Men Fall Cleanup is here, and it means one thing.
Football!
Okay, it means two things.
Hunting!
No.
Yeah, I don't hunt. Hang Christmas lights?
Nope.
Rake the leaves?
No. Call Hall Tree Care.
Yeah, but why?
Fall is the best time to have your trees and shrubs trimmed and hazards removed. Every winter, homes and vehicles are damaged by heavy snow and overgrown trees. Call 760-6587 and ask about their radio discount. Hall Tree Care, that's Hull Tree Care, 760-6587.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
The Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council present the story of Cynthia and Ed.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, out of the blue, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn or just stay at the stop sign. She wasn't even really sure where she was at. She was very concerned. It was very unsettling for her.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it, to bring the family in on it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Feels like Tuesday. Tuesday has no feel.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of today's show. Tuesday, November 8th, Election Day. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. Hour 1, we spoke with United States Senate candidate, the Republican in the race, Mike Lee. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll speak with the independent in the race, the man who has made this a competitive race, which is unheard of in statewide races here in Utah. So he deserves credit for that alone, even if the polls aren't looking, for sure for him. Evan McMullin joining us at 5:20 after our first break. We got a complaint in hour 1 that I'm going to honor here, at least for a second. I said we're going to be spending a lot of time on election headlines from around Utah, the region, and even the nation. And, of course, tonight, election night coverage, courtesy of our pals at ABC News, runs throughout the night. We'll hand the reins over to them at 6 when we wrap up here on For the People, and they will take it until 10 o'clock tonight. So all of your election eve Election Eve was last night. Election night coverage from ABC News starting right as we wrap up here at 6 o'clock in about 45 minutes. So this is definitely your place to be. We'll have local updates, but probably not going to be a lot to say. 8 o'clock is the poll close time. You can drop your ballots to the drop box until then. So you have 2 hours and 45 minutes to do so. Do not mail your ballot. You can also take it in person to the election center, which is at the fairgrounds, not the county clerk's office, although there is a drop box at the county clerk's office out back there. You can drive right up to it. And they're located at city offices throughout the valley, throughout the Wasatch Front. You can see a map at vote.utah.gov. Again, you can also register to vote and cast a provisional ballot today. If you're just getting late into the game here, that is an option here in Utah. The way it works, you take proper ID, a list of what counts as voter ID here in Utah at vote.utah.gov. Take the ID in, register to vote, cast a provisional ballot at the same time. Once your registration clears, once it's been approved that you are a legal voter here in Utah, the provisional ballot becomes an actual ballot and is counted in the total before the canvassing is done 2 weeks from today. So that is an option. And, of course, that is until 8 p.m. tonight, at which point it's done, except the counting. I wouldn't expect an update before 9 p.m. I'd be surprised if it comes at 9 p.m. The lieutenant governor has said she has instructed clerk's offices and poll workers to say nothing until the counting is at very least close to complete, and absolutely nothing until the polls close. Being very careful not to influence anyone's vote here, the lieutenant governor said, by putting results out before polls are closed, which some states do. So I think that's a responsible thing for her to do. But listener texted when I said we were going to be talking about this for 2 full hours, plus ABC News coverage until 10 o'clock tonight of the midterm elections at large, including Utah's. Listener texted in, good friend of mine actually texted in and said, no, please don't. I filled my ballot out days ago. I did my duty. I researched the candidates. I marked the dots. I mailed it in. I just want to check out because the presidential race is probably starting next week. And you're right, Dan. It probably is, unfortunately. But I'm a political junkie. Election nights are sort of like our Super Bowl. So I'm going to be talking a lot about it for the next 45 minutes. And then ABC is going to talk a lot about it with some results as certain eastern states' polls close. In fact, Georgia's polls have closed at this point, and that is a bellwether state on who's got the momentum in this cycle. Maybe some early clues as to how this is all going to turn out, United States House and Senate-wise. So with that in mind, we're going to do the same thing I did in hour one. We're going to do election headlines, but we're going to do this with, since everyone's so calm about elections, a little smooth jazz. Bill, could you fire up the smooth jazz, please?
Certainly.
Everybody just take a deep breath. That's right.
This makes me kind of tired.
All right, here you go. Speaking of election headlines, one of my recommendations, even if you're not a fan of the platform itself, you will not, if you're following the midterms nationally and races individually throughout the country, you won't find anything more live, rapid, and interesting than Twitter tonight. But be careful where you end up on Twitter. You don't want to get to one of these places where there's just a bunch of people offering their opinion. That's annoying. You're going to want to follow, if you don't use it already, follow official news sources, because, again, it is amazing. We do have some election news from around the country to announce already. Republican Rand Paul has won re-election in his United States Senate race in Kentucky. AP has called that race. They called it at 514, meaning that race was not close. AP has yet to call another race everyone's keeping a close eye on, the Florida's 27th district, with Representative Salazar and her Democratic challenger, Annette Tadeo. No call on that race, but the results so far are pretty close. Another bellwether that everyone's watching there. As far as Utah political news goes, no results to announce yet, but again, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson said just before we started the show today that her one update before polls close at 8, she said, would be this. Voter turnout currently stands at about 41%. That is way below the 72 of 2018's midterms, and far, far below the 90% of registered voters that showed up in 2020, the presidential year, with congressional races as well. So, final headline here for you to go along with the smooth jazz. This is for you, Dan, who said he was sick of political campaign news. This one's for you. I watched it last night. TMZ has a documentary just out on Hulu titled What Really Happened to Richard Simmons. You remember him, Bill? Loud exercise guy, very funny.
Yeah, a little annoying.
Yeah, kind of got on your nerves a little bit, but funny at first. Seemed like a nice guy, loved everybody. Again, loud. Disappeared, literally, in 2014. He made an appearance at an art awards ceremony in 2014, February, and was never seen in public again. TMZ did some digging, and here, Dan, for you, a non-election headline for you. Richard Simmons alive and well, but what they found is he sneaks out in public incognito, and the reason for his disappearance, he wanted people to remember him as that loud, energetic, fitness-obsessed, loving person. So when his knees went out and he was then unable to walk without assistive devices, he just didn't want people to see him that way. Said he was pulling a Garbo. Greta Garbo did this. Greta Garbo did it for 40 years, though, after her career when she retired. And she lived another 40 years basically in hiding. Simmons says he plans to do the same thing because he wants to be remembered as that fun, bouncing all over the place guy everyone knows him as. There, Dan, a non-election headline. On the other side, United States Senate candidate Evan McMullin joining us to make his final elevator pitch to voters here on the show right after this.
Come celebrate a white Christmas with Anderson's Seed and Garden. They are potentially giving away $40,000 in merchandise to the first 50 people who spend $500 or more on holiday and Christmas decor between now and November 24th. If it snows at least 4 inches on Christmas Day and you made a qualifying purchase, your purchase is free. But you only have until November 24th to qualify. Only at Anderson's Seed and Garden. Logan, see store for official rules.
Holiday parties and events at the Riverwoods Conference Center offer a festive and fun holiday atmosphere. Paired with catering from the Elements Restaurant, your special occasion can include tasty hors d'oeuvres, delicious entrees, and decadent desserts that always deliver excellence. Now accepting reservations for the 2022 holiday season, the Riverwoods Conference Center and Elements Restaurant can accommodate you whether your event is large or small. Visit theriverwoods.com or call 750-5151.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Inviting candidates, voters, anyone to join us here on the show. Kind of an open line format today on Election Day. Polls open until 8 p.m. Drop your ballots off at drop boxes throughout the valley or on the Wasatch Front if you're listening from there. Here in Cache Valley, the vote center is currently at the fairgrounds. They needed a larger location for that. So that's where you drop your ballots off in person if you choose not to use a drop box. Do not mail your ballot, but please get it in before 8 p.m. Otherwise, as the cliche goes, you can't complain. You can also register and cast a provisional ballot if you're not registered to vote but have changed your mind and want to today. Before 8 p.m., go into the vote center, cast with proper ID. You can see what qualifies as proper ID at vote.utah.gov. Cast a provisional ballot as you register to vote. Once your registration is finalized, that provisional ballot becomes an actual vote, an actual ballot, rather, and is counted in the total before the final canvassing is done 2 weeks from today. So 8 p.m. is your cutoff. Make sure your ballots are in drop boxes or in the hands of a person at the vote center before 8 p.m. And we should see some results maybe as early as 9 o'clock tonight, at least on the local races, though I predict this United States Senate race is going to take a bit longer because the polling suggests that it is neck and neck. Joining us right now, one of the candidates in that race, independent candidate for United States Senate, Evan McMullin. And Evan, appreciate taking some time for KVNU today, especially on short notice. We just threw this out as the show started, so we're honored that people would take the time to join us here. But before you make your elevator pitch to voters, can you tell us how things are going? How are you feeling about this? And what are you hearing from people on Election Day?
Well, Jason, thanks so much for having me on. We're excited. I mean, one of the things that I think most excites me about all of this is that we're hearing from voters across the state that, for the first time in 50 years, which will be, the first time in most people's lives in the state, their votes matter. We're having a competitive Senate race here in Utah for the first time in almost half a century. And that's a big, big deal. We need competitive elections in order for our leaders to remain accountable to us and in order for us to get good policy outcomes on various challenges facing the country, whether it's inflation or high cost of health care or, air and water challenges, you name it. We've got to have accountable leaders. And the only way we get that is through competitive elections. So we're very excited. We're proud that we built a coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and independents to stand up to all the division and extremism in our politics these days. I think Utah's got a lot to offer Washington, and we can help get this country on track.
And hats off to you, Evan, for making this a competitive race. It's not statewide competitive races here in Utah are rare, to say the least, if even in a generation unheard of. And so that you've made it a competitive race, that has to feel good, right? That has to say to you, you've touched on something.
Well, I think what feels good is that we have an opportunity here in Utah now to hold our leaders accountable. I mean, in the past, you get elected here for some offices, and then you just stay forever because the elections aren't competitive. But because of the way we're doing it, I'm running as an independent because I want to be committed to people, to Utahns, not to special interest groups. I refuse to take their money, not to party bosses, et cetera. Running this way has allowed people from across the political aisle to join this effort. People who want to replace Mike Lee, but who know the problem is much bigger than him. We've got to stand up to party bosses and all the division in our politics in order to solve problems. And that's the way we do our work here in Utah. We have a culture of finding common ground in order to solve problems. And that's the way we've done it for nearly 200 years. And that's how we can thrive as a state and a country going forward. And my opponent, I am sad to say, embodies the politics of division. And I think that hasn't served our state well. I think at times it's embarrassed Utah. But I'm committed to working across party lines to get things done. And I'm not going to go to Washington and take the money of party bosses or special interest groups like my opponent has, because as soon as somebody does that in Washington, they don't represent us anymore. And so I pledge not to take their money and to put the interests of Utah first.
One of the arguments your opponent has made in the final days of the campaigns here is that you would be a liability because you're an independent. You've made that actually a part of your campaign, saying being an independent actually, if we see tonight, for example, a Senate that is 49-51 or 50-50 or even 48-52, we're basically looking at a split Senate with both parties having at different times a working majority. Your argument is that, and that is a very likely outcome, I should point out to our listeners, your argument is that at that point there's nothing better than to be represented by an independent.
That's right. I mean, first let's talk about where we are. Senator Lee has spent 12 years in the Senate. He said he would only run for 2 terms. Now, of course, he's running for a 3rd. But during this time there, he's only passed 6 bills, and 3 of them named federal buildings. I mean, just to put that in context, Senator Hatch passed more bills in a single Congress, 2 years, a 2-year period, than Senator Lee has in his entire time there, which again has been 12 years. So what we're doing now, what Senator Lee is doing with his politics of division, they're just not serving Utah well. He's not getting anything done. On the contrary, if we replace him with an independent, if we prevail in this race, it'll mean that Utah, standing between the 2 parties, has the final vote on really every major piece of legislation that crosses through the Senate. And that will make Utah one of the most influential states in the union. And I hope everyone, within the reach of my voice through your show and your broadcast, will consider what I'm about to say. I believe our nation is at a crossroads. The country needs Utah's leadership every bit as we need better representation in Washington. I think our country is at a crossroads. We're so divided that we're starting to come apart as a country. I don't think we've been more divided at any time since the Civil War. But again, we have a different way of doing things here. We stick to principle, and we still find common ground to solve problems. That's the kind of leadership this country needs, and I think this is a moment where Utah, our state, needs to offer it. And that's That's the big picture here. If we prevail in this race, it will make our state and this coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and independents of goodwill and good faith the most influential in the nation. We'll do a lot of good for our state and for our country as a result.
Evan McMullin, independent candidate for United States Senate, is here with us. Again, kind of an open line style show today, and appreciate that so many candidates have joined us. We spoke with County Executive David Zook just before the end of the hour, now starting off hour 2 with independent candidate Evan McMullin. Again, this is still an active election. Polls are open for another 2.5 hours here in Utah. So plenty of time, even if you're at work now or on your way home now, plenty of time. Evan, I did some light math. That's about as much as I can handle. And I realized if you look at what the Kimsey Gardner Institute says is the average Utahns commute, which is about 20 minutes each way. And then you look at Dropbox locations, which you can do at vote.utah.gov. Every single one of us drives past no fewer than 2 in our day. So there is very little excuse not to turn that ballot in, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Jason, I'm glad you did do that math. That's valuable to the whole state. You know, I would just say this. I don't care who you're voting for. I mean, I do care. I would love for you to vote for me. Let me be clear about that.
Sure.
But even if you're not voting for me, vote. You know, our system of self-government is a precious, precious thing, and it is threatened right now. And the only way this system works, the only way we hold our leaders accountable, whether it's Senator Lee or me or anyone else, is to vote. And so I urge everyone, no matter who you're voting for, whether you support me or not, you know, make the effort. Jason just did the math for you. You can make it to. You can drop off your ballot. You can show up in person and vote, even if you're not registered to vote yet. You can show up, bring a couple of pieces of ID, and cast a provisional vote that ultimately, if you get cleared and registered, will count. And so there's still an opportunity, if you haven't voted yet, to play an important role in our system and to have your voice heard. And again, regardless of who you're supporting, you know, please turn out and vote. It's important for the future of the American Republic.
Evan McMullin, independent candidate for United States Senate, running in, as Evan himself has said, as I've said many times for the last few weeks, something that does not happen in Utah, a competitive statewide race. So your vote absolutely matters in this one. It could come down to 100 votes, 1,000 votes. So get your ballots in. EvanMcMullin.com is the website if you'd like to learn more about Evan. Still time to look at his priorities, his principles for renewal, things like that. And Evan, appreciate taking some time for KVNU today. And final question for you here before we go to the news. Where will you be watching election results from tonight? You're going to be out at a party, at home quietly with Netflix. County executive said he was going snowshoeing. So,
well, that sounds like a great idea. But no, I mean, that's an activity I'll have to reserve for tomorrow. My wife and I are already talking about, you know, we love to spend time hiking and climbing mountains, and you know, we haven't been on top of many peaks this year because of the campaign. And so, in the days ahead, we plan to summit something, even if we have to, put on our snowshoes and do it that way. But yes, tonight I'll be at an event center and in Taylorsville, and we'll be gathering our volunteers and supporters, and a lot of members of the press will be showing up to cover the race, and it'll be a lot of fun. So we'll spend time with people who have been working so hard on this race across the state for over a year now, and we're very excited about that.
Very excited that you've made this competitive. That's good for everyone, keeps everyone on their toes, and gets more people out voting. So hats off to you, Evan, for that. And for listeners, again, still time to look into the candidates, fill out a provisional ballot and register to vote at the same time. Drop your ballot off in person or at a drop box. All of these are options. Vote.utah.gov for everything you need, from what counts as proper ID to register to Dropbox locations. You can learn more about Evan himself and his campaign in the 2.5 hours that are left before polls close at evanmcmullin.com. I've linked to that on our Facebook page as well. And Evan, one last time, at least for this election cycle, thank you for your time. You've been generous with it this cycle, and best of luck to you tonight.
Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you for the service you do in educating all of us on the choices before us. It's such an important thing you do with your voice and your show, and I want to commend you and thank you for that.
I appreciate that very much. We try. We definitely try. Don't always do a perfect job, but we at least try to get everyone out there in the spotlight for some time. And again, it's been a pleasure to offer that to you as well. And thank you again for your time for us. And we'll speak again soon, one way or another.
Sounds good, Jason. Be well.
You as well. For listeners, again, evanmcmullin.com, the website. Again, still time to look into the candidates. You have very little excuse to not get that ballot in, especially if one's already been mailed to you. But even if one hasn't, as Evan said, you can register and fill out a provisional ballot up until 8 p.m. when polls close. The election center, currently located at the Cache County Fairgrounds, they need more space there. Plenty of parking down there. It is a bit crowded. As I said, I saw that on the way into the station today. It was a bit crowded about 2 in the afternoon. So faster way, if you've already got your ballot, you're already registered and have your ballot, drop it at a drop box. There at city halls throughout the valley, all along the Wasatch Front if you're listening from there, in Box Elder County as well. There in Brigham City. Locations for those drop boxes can be found at vote.utah.gov. And on the other side of the news, another special guest joining us. I've opened the phone lines up and invited anyone and everyone to call, make their elevator pitch for candidates or explaining what prompted them to vote, what inspired them to vote, etc. On the other side of the news, we have one of my favorite guests, Chair of the Cache County Republican Party, Shellie Giddings, joining us. Shellie, hold tight. You're first up after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:36, and this reminder will have ABC News coverage of the midterm elections beginning at 6 o'clock this evening, going from at least 6 p.m., looks like, till 10 p.m., and we will have local and state results as they roll in our newscasts this evening, and you can also check CacheValleyDaily.com. Utah Senator Dan McKay, Republican from Riverton, said a final proposed design for a new state flag will likely be revealed this week. McKay said he thinks that the state is ready this Thursday to look at a final design. McKay sits on the task force charged with overseeing the process to develop a new flag. The potential unveiling comes after a lengthy public input process that McKay says is indicative of the desire for change. He admits not everyone is on board with the idea of revamping the state flag. McKay said if you look at the polling data, it's about a third of the people that like the existing flag. A third are completely indifferent, and another third want to replace it. Given other governmental and legislative priorities, some still wonder why a new flag is needed. Others say a new flag will be a unifying symbol. A strong winter storm is expected to impact roadways throughout the Beehive State, including heavy snow in the mountains. The storm will last until Thursday morning. Rain quickly changed over to snow in northern Utah this morning. The main part of the storm arrives tonight and Wednesday morning with heavy precipitation in the form of rain or snow, depending on the temperature. Temperatures will dip into the 20s and 30s for highs and teens and 20s for lows on Thursday afternoon as another push of cold air rolls through Utah. A high wind warning was in place for the West Deserts and Salt Flats until 8 p.m. and wind advisories in effect for the Salt Lake Valley and areas of central Utah until 8 p.m. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has released a location for the second temple to be built in Michigan. Church officials said the temple was first announced by President Russell M. Nelson in October 2022. The temple is planned to be constructed in Grand Rapids, Michigan. According to a press release, it will be built on a 10.5-acre site. Plans called for a single-story temple of about 20,000 square feet. Along with the Detroit, Michigan temple, which has been open since October 1999, the temple will be the second in the state of Michigan. Church officials said Michigan is home to more than 45,000 Latter-day Saints and nearly 100 congregations. KBNU News Time is 5:39.
This is Mark with Roof Rescue. Most of us don't think about our roofs very often until you see shingles on the ground or water drips through your ceiling. Keep your roof in tip-top shape to protect your home, your biggest investment. Roof Rescue uses only the highest quality materials with experienced workmanship guaranteed to last. Even if you were denied by your insurance company the first time, a free re-evaluation can be made. Visit roofrescueusa.com to schedule your free consultation in Cache Valley and surrounding areas. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
KVNU weather for tonight, rain or snow, depending on the temperature in our forecast for tonight. The overnight low tonight will be into the lower 30s. Rain and snow in the morning. Snow likely in the afternoon on Wednesday. Little or no accumulation. High temperature in the upper 30s. Snow likely Wednesday evening. Chance of snow after midnight with accumulations possible tomorrow night. It's been to 36. It's 32 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. Get prepared for cold and snow. Save up to $16 on a pair of Rain-X wiper blades, or take $10 instant rebate on a set of Napa Exact Fit wiper blades at your 5 locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts stores. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
This is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. We are humbled by and grateful for the tremendous support we have been shown since opening our doors nearly 2 years ago. So we just want to say thank you. On behalf of everyone at White Pine, first and foremost, thank you for allowing us the honor and privilege of serving you and caring for your loved ones. Additionally, thank you for voting White Pine the best mortuary in Cache Valley in both 2021 and 2022.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
Wednesday edition of the Clay and Buck Show. Post-election breakdown, all the biggest races of the night. What's in, what's still left to be decided, and where do we go from here? Plus, Clay.
Finally, the reckoning. Jim Jordan will join us. What is next for a Republican House and hopefully a Republican Senate? We'll discuss all that and more. Election reaction on Wednesday.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Open line style show today. If you'd like to call in, tell us. You don't have to. I won't ask anyone how they voted. You're welcome to tell us if you want to, but I won't ask anyone to do that. But I would like to hear what inspired you to vote, what was most important to you, what your experience was like with the ballots or drop boxes or dropping them off in person, whatever it might be. Polls are open until 8. The county election center at the fairgrounds open until 8 as well. You can drop ballots off in person there or at drop boxes around the valley. They will be collected by election staff at 8 p.m. After that, my understanding is anything in the box tomorrow morning after that final collection at 8 p.m. Is just shredded because it can't legally be counted as a vote based on state law. So 8 p.m. is the cutoff. Drop it off in person. If you're not registered to vote, you can still do that, believe it or not. Here in Utah, you can register to vote with proper ID. See what constitutes proper ID at vote.utah.gov. Once you've registered, you cast a provisional ballot. Once your registration clears, i.e. they determine you're a legal voter here in Utah, then that provisional ballot is counted into the total before the canvassing is official 2 weeks from today. And so you can still influence the outcome of elections. Some of these do come down to a handful of votes, some of the, especially legislative races. So definitely make time to do it. You got 2 hours and 15 minutes, plenty of time to do so. As I mentioned when Evan McMullin was with us, I did some calculating, looked at the map and the average commute time estimated by the Kempsey Gardner Institute. Kempsey Gardner Institute out of U of U estimates the average Utahn commutes 20 to 22 minutes a day. If you translate that into miles driven based on a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is probably low for most people, it is no fewer than 2 drop boxes you drive past on your daily commute. So 2 hours and 15 minutes. You got plenty of time to do this still. Please find one. They're at city halls throughout the valley and also there behind the county admin building. And, of course, you can go down in person to the election center if you want to see the crowds and wait in a bit of a line, which can be fun, honestly. So a person who knows how fun that can be, because I know she's been there both on caucus nights, on primaries, through special elections and official election nights, more so than you would normally expect in a single year. We have with us the Cache County Republican Party chair, Shellie Giddings. And Shellie, appreciate being patient with us, getting to you here, but I'm glad you hung on because I love talking to party leadership on Election Day because I know for me it's fun. For you and the candidates, it is awful and a headache. And how much aspirin have you eaten today?
Quite a bit. Not just today, probably the last week. I've been making lots and lots of phone calls.
Oh, this is one of my favorite things. It's easy for people to get cynical in Utah because we are a red state, meaning that in most races, it's just a given the Republican will win. But what I really appreciate, for the most part, and especially so here in Cache County, Republicans still campaign. As if they, even those who don't even have a challenger sometimes, are out there campaigning because, as many have told me, it's an opportunity to talk to their constituents, get the pulse for where people are at. Have you gotten a sense for Cache County specifically what is bubbling to the top in many of these races or for many of your candidates?
Well, maybe.
I know all eyeballs are on this United States Senate race, but these local races, all politics gets local, right?
I think people in Cache County are worried about the economy. They're worried about inflation. They want to know what, if anything, our candidates can do.
Sure.
Now, obviously, local, working with inflation is a little bit more difficult. That's more of a federal, maybe a state level. But I really see people talking about the economy a lot.
It makes sense because there's a lot of unknowns right now. A local way that I've seen here on the show, the economy, translate into a very local decision for new families, especially, is home ownership. Everyone's wondering, is now a good time to buy? Is it a bad time to buy? If we do enter a recession next year, housing prices currently bottoming out, but they were skyrocketing a week ago. It's a lot of uncertainty. Has this been, as your candidates there within the Cache Republican Party have campaigned, has it presented any challenges, trying to, when you have these national issues that are tied very closely to local decisions, it can be hard for candidates to campaign, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. But I think our candidates have done a great job.
Sure.
We have a great state legislature and great, even our local elected officials here, they're sensitive to those issues. And what is Utah? The number one state in the country for the economy, right?
Sure.
I think it's number one, maybe number two. So, our legislature they're doing something right.
Sure.
So I don't think that our candidates are having too difficult of what am I trying to say, an issue with that. They've all been doing a good job, honestly, I think. Dan Johnson, he's been out, man. He has hit the campaign trail so hard. He's visited every precinct in his district, everyone. I mean, think about that. That's
sure.
Door to door, talking to the people.
That's amazing.
Yes. Oh, he's amazing.
And a nice guy on top of that.
So nice. My 15-year-old daughter just loves him. She's like, because he's always very kind and nice to her, and he asks her how school's going, and he's just so, because he cares. He cares.
That was, I joked. I don't think Patrick would mind me telling this story. Patrick, if you do, I apologize. But so Dan Johnson has a challenger in this race, a Democrat. His name's Patrick Belmont. He's a water scientist. And I told Patrick, I said, you know what, considering the issues Utah's facing right now, I think it would be great to have more water science in the legislative process. Your problem, Patrick, is you're running against the nicest guy that has ever lived in Utah. And also, this isn't, I don't endorse candidates, but I have to say this about Representative Johnson, Shellie. He's a workhorse. He's rarely in the spotlight for any controversy or anything like that, if ever. But he, I think, holds the record for out of Cache Valley's representation for number of bills passed. And most of his bills are not creating anything new. They're tweaking this or that or redirecting this or that, refining everything. I just really admire how he navigates that process.
And, and that is what we need more of, don't we? We need more of our legislators. I mean, even on the federal level, looking at the laws that are in place right now and going in and either eliminating them or, like you said, tweaking them. We don't need more bills passed. I heard Evan McMullin earlier criticizing Senator Lee for not having a lot of bills.
Sure.
Well, good. We don't need more laws. Who wants more laws? We want fewer laws. We want, we want those things tweaked. So, but I have to tell you, sorry.
I was just going to say, I do get nervous when I see the tally of the legislature's bill files every year. And I know not everyone becomes a bill, not everyone becomes a law. But when I see 1,200, I'm like, oh, no, please don't. So I'm with you on that. Maybe slow things down a little bit.
Exactly. And Representative Johnson does do well with that. But, Jason, I wasn't even going to call tonight. I was going to let the candidates call. But then I did hear something that your previous caller said, and I thought, and it's one of my big pet peeves.
Oh, that's perfect. That's fair.
He kept calling our elected officials leaders. They're not leaders. They are elected public officials.
That's a good point.
Think that by calling them leaders all the time, we're giving them more power or more authority than they deserve or that they should have, right? They work for us. They are accountable to us. They are elected officials. They're not leaders. So I just had to call and say that.
Boy, that's an excellent point, Shellie. I'm really glad you did that because I think I'm guilty of that too. I mean, obviously, in some cases, when we're referring to Stuart Adams, Senate President, or Brad Wilson, the House Speaker, they are legislative leaders. They lead the House and the Senate. But that's an excellent point that we should be very careful about. Even using the words that we use when we talk about elected officials, because they are supposed to be our voice, our representatives. They're supposed to basically be an extension of us, or at least the majority of their constituents that elected them, when they go into the legislative process, state level, federal level, whatever they might be, even county and city politics. That's an excellent point. I really appreciate that.
Well, I look at it as, when you're going into a session, whatever your job is, if you have on your mind that you are there as an elected official, right, an elected representative, you might look at things differently and behave differently than going in thinking, I'm a leader.
Sure.
Right?
That is, honestly, you have made my day. This is,
oh, well, good.
Because this really is such an important thing, especially, as I know you have, Shellie, if you followed the legislative process. The only lawmakers who ever get themselves into trouble or walk us into trouble as a state are those who have decided they're leaders and they're going to dictate how this plays out, and they're not open to feedback, and then it blows up in their face every time. And yet Cache Valley lawmakers who don't approach it that way never have that problem, right?
Right. Exactly.
That's an excellent point.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my, like I said, it's one of my pet peeves. And Evan McMullin, he kept referring to them as leaders, and I thought, words matter,
Yeah.
Definitions of words matter, and we have to be careful with the words that we use.
Shellie, I really appreciate that. And that is such a perfect place for us to wrap up our show today, because that gets us back to why you go vote, why you should drop your ballots off before 8 p.m., how you should interact with and provide feedback to elected officials, why you should watchdog the process regardless of where you're listening from. Because as Shelley's mentioned here, I love this. The word leader isn't right. They are elected officials. They are elected representatives of us, and they're supposed to go say what we would collectively say, at least the majority of us, and that is very different than someone who's leading or guiding the process. Man, what an excellent point, Shellie. That is so perfect. I appreciate you calling to offer it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the fact that whenever I call, you let me on to talk.
Oh, you are always welcome, because I have a lot of admiration for party officials, because you never get credit for it. All the candidates who win tonight are going to get the credit for, oh, you ran an amazing campaign. Oh, you've done an amazing job. What they don't understand is that none of them in any major party get elected to anything without the party structure behind them, and people like you, Shellie, your executive committee, all the thousands of volunteers statewide that make this happen. So really, I think regardless of who wins in what race or where tonight, y'all deserve the credit.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate making time to call. And again, it's a perfect way to wrap up this election cycle with you, Shellie. Please keep in touch. We'll speak again soon. I'm sure there's plenty coming down the pike to talk about. For our listeners, please stay tuned. Again, full night of ABC News coverage here on KVNU, running until 10 p.m., covering Utah's races and also the outcome of these midterms nationwide. And our guest again here wrapping up the show has been Shellie Giddings, chair of the Cache County Republican Party. Shellie, thanks to you for your time and how generous you've been with it over the last several months. Even to our listeners for tuning in. We'll be back right after this.
For over 20 years, Aegis Home Health and Hospice has been providing health care to Cache, Box Elder, and Rich counties. Whatever or wherever your health care needs, Aegis' goal is to meet those needs. Aegis Home Health and Hospice core values are character, experience, and trust. Aegis, AEGIS, striving to provide the health care services you need. Aegis Home Health and Hospice. Call 723-9000 or find them at myaegis.com.
What are customers saying about Top Job Asphalt? Professional, prompt, courteous?
Knowledgeable and easy to work with. My job was performed with minimal impact to our daily lives.
Very fast and efficient, as well as a great price.
Looks good and lasts.
We started to do it ourselves and quickly realized that it's much cheaper to hire Top Job. Anything Top Job could have done better?
Nothing. I was pleased with the work.
Totally satisfied. Feed my horses? Well, you could ask. Call Top Job Asphalt for your asphalt maintenance needs. 764-0451.
Have you pulled your winter quilts and blankets out of storage? Do they smell stale and look flat? And is your hunting gear, sleeping bags, and coats dingy as well? Well, go to Mount Logan Laundry. It'll take no time at all to freshen everything up with their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, the biggest around, and it costs a whole lot less than dry cleaning, with free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. They're on the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham City at 1st East and 7th South.
The Cache Valley Media Group Logan Holiday Gift Show is presented by Coppins Hallmark, Friday and Saturday, November 11th and 12th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. It is the perfect place to kick off your holiday shopping. Ideas and treats for the entire family. Clothing, books, jewelry, purses, home and holiday decor, baby items, and don't miss everyone's favorite guest, Santa. The Logan Holiday Gift Show, presented by Coppins Hallmark, Friday and Saturday, November 11th and 12th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Start your holiday shopping off right.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Man, I wish every show could play out this. I put zero planning into this other than the headlines I was going to cover in our...
We had a lot of famous people that called in.
I started the show. I just threw the numbers out there, said any candidates want to make their elevator pitches. We heard from United States Senator Mike Lee. That was great, actually, to have, he at least had campaign staff here in Cache Valley that were listening. That's an honor. United States Senate candidate Evan McMullin, independent candidate. Same for him. Campaign workers must have been listening. I feel famous, Bill, is what I feel. Also, no, it's KVNU.
Like, guess what Jason's talking about?
It's KVNU that's famous. Everyone knows that on Election Day especially, this is where you want to be. We also heard from David Zook, Cache County executive and up for re-election. His name there on the ballots, you probably noticed. Again, polls are open for another 2 hours. We won't see results until, I would say, at the earliest 9 o'clock tonight, if that. The lieutenant governor has instructed clerks to play it close. The last thing they want to do is invite some of these, as Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson herself has called them, silly conspiracy theories that have dominated since 2020 our political discourse in some ways. Lieutenant Governor Henderson said to avoid that, she wants no results out until they've got a majority counted. And that's probably the responsible things to do. She said to clerks as well, 0 results can be released until polls close, so as not to unduly influence any voters. That's responsible. I think the elections are in good hands here in Utah. We'll see how things turned out. Pay attention tonight, 6 to 10 p.m., ABC News with election coverage here.